If I had to boil the book down into just a couple of sentences, I think I'd say that the Iranian nuclear program is one of the most frustrating and potentially most dangerous issues that the United States faces. That if we can find a way to diplomatically work out a deal with the Iranians to turn off their program and give us confidence that they're not going to cheat and build nuclear weapons, that we ought to do so because that's by far the best outcome of this. But that if we're not able to do so, and we're left with what is the worst choice of all, the choice between going to war with Iran or containing Iran, even a nuclear Iran. Neither of these choices are very good. Both have more problems than benefits. But ultimately, I think that the weight of evidence suggests that containment is the better path for the United States than war. If the Iranians aren't willing to make the deal with us, if they aren't willing to find a way to live at peace with us and with their neighbors, I think we are going to have to contain Iran. In fact, the truth is we have been containing Iran for the past 34 years. Although very few American administrations have wanted to admit it, containment has been the heart of every American policy toward Iran since the Iranian Revolution. And it's consisted of preventing the Iranians from mounting any conventional military attacks beyond their borders, hindering them from supporting terrorism, hindering them from subverting and trying to overturn our allies in the region, and otherwise trying to prevent them from making the Middle East more unstable than it already is, all the while waiting patiently for this regime to collapse of its own dysfunctionalities. And I think it's worth pointing out that what we've seen in the past 2 decades is an Iranian public that is increasingly unhappy with its own political system, that is increasingly determined to see changes there and to try as best it can to force those changes on a very reluctant, very autocratic regime. There's no question that President Rouhani is going to have his hands full. He's got some major challenges. While I think that the evidence does indicate that he is a genuine reformer and would truly like to change both Iran's external policies and its internal politics, there's obviously a huge array of forces lined up against him that are going to try to prevent that. The hardliners, the conservatives, all of the forces in Iran that have benefited from the Islamic Revolution and the 34 years of autocracy that has followed, none of those guys are going to go gently into that good night. And for them, enmity with the United States is a core element of their identity, of the legitimacy of the Islamic regime. And I think they fear that if they gave up that enmity with the United States, there really wouldn't be any reason for them to remain in power. And clearly, having a nuclear weapon seems to be something that many of them want as a way of deterring what they see as an imminent American attack on them. And for others, I think it may be more about their ability to stand up to the United States, play on the same level as the United States, or advance the interests of their revolution in ways that we would find unsavory, by backing terrorist groups, insurgencies, trying to subvert foreign governments, all things that the United States has consistently objected to. So if Rouhani is really going to change Iran, and if he's going to start by changing Iran's nuclear program, this is going to be a major undertaking for him. And it's why I think that as the United States goes into these negotiations, while we simultaneously have to make sure that we get what we need from these negotiations, we need to also try to give Rouhani what he needs. Because we need to recognize he's got to sell this to his hardliners. And if he can't do that, it doesn't really matter what concessions he's made to us because we're not going to get them.